The Sheep Detectives is proof that sometimes the movie that you expect the least from ends up surprising you the most, and as always, I have a few thoughts on this one. Going into this movie, I was not expecting too much. The trailer made it look like a silly kids movie starring Hugh Jackman and a bunch of CGI sheep. Something cute, disposable, and probably pretty forgettable. I expected something in the same lane as a straight-to-streaming family movie that you kind of forget about the second the credits roll. Instead, I got a surprisingly thoughtful murder mystery about grief, memory, love, death, and yes, it still stars CGI sheep. And somehow, it works. Now, I do want to clarify, this is still a children's movie. The first 20 to 30 minutes absolutely feel that. It's bright, it's colorful, and every character feels like they're playing an archetype. You got the suspicious priest, the writer chasing his next big story, the clueless cop. It all feels intentionally familiar and a little exaggerated. But as the story unfolds, it becomes way deeper than that. The film starts exploring some surprisingly heavy themes for something with talking sheep. It deals with death, grief, and even religion in ways that are sometimes surprisingly funny, but also genuinely emotional. One of the best ideas in this movie is the concept that memory is what keeps the people we love alive, that remembering pain matters because forgetting means losing them twice. And for a movie called The Sheep Detectives, that is way more emotional weight than I expected. And honestly, I got pretty close to crying. Not fully, but close enough that I had that moment of, why am I getting emotional for animated sheep? That alone says a lot. The movie is also genuinely funny. There's a scene where the sheep discover what a road is, and it's one of the funniest things in the movie. They use these huge wide-eyed expressions so well, and the scene, no joke, ends with a literal chicken crossing the road, which is exactly the kind of ridiculous joke that this movie knows how to land. It understands how absurd the premise of this movie is, and it leans into that without undercutting the emotional sincerity. The voice cast is also stacked. Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Bryan Cranston, and Chris O'Dowd, they lead the main trio of sheep, and then there are fun supporting appearances from people like Patrick Stewart. And then there's Emma Thompson playing one of the human characters who absolutely steals every single scene she's in. She's clearly having the best time in this movie. Hugh Jackman is also interesting here because he's basically the face of all the marketing, but spoiler alert, he gets murdered. So he actually doesn't have nearly as much screen time as you'd expect from the posters. That said, he really makes the most of the time he has, and honestly, the emotional weight of the ending works because of what he brings to those earlier scenes. His presence lingers over the whole movie even when he's gone. Nobody's giving some huge transformational Oscar caliber performance. It's mostly voice acting for animated sheep, but everyone commits, and that's what matters. The animation itself is also fantastic, especially with the sheep. I never once thought, oh, this looks bad. Their expressions also do so much of the comedic heavy lifting. The whole village setting really gives this movie this really cozy mystery vibe. It reminded me a little bit of Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery from last year, that small village centered around a church layered with suspects kind of energy. And I do have to give a huge shout out to the score by Christoph Beck because it gives this movie way more gravitas than something called The Sheep Detectives has any right to have. It makes everything feel bigger and way more emotional than you'd expect. Now, the actual mystery itself, honestly, pretty predictable. The killer reveal isn't surprising, and the detective mechanics aren't really the strongest part of the film, but I think that's okay because the mystery is really just the framework for something much more emotional underneath. This isn't really about solving the murder, it's about what that loss means, and I think that's why this movie works. I saw this movie through AMC's Screen Unseen program where you buy a ticket without actually knowing what the movie you're getting is, and I was pleasantly surprised. I've been feeling a little murder mystery fatigue lately. We've had so many puzzle box movies recently, and while I love that genre, not all of them have felt fresh. I never thought that the thing that would make this genre feel new again would be a bunch of animated sheep solving a murder, and yet here we are. That's just kind of the magic of this movie. It presents itself as something really silly and disposable. And I think the title might hurt it, especially with marketing, because The Sheep Detective sounds like the kind of movie most adults would immediately skip. But underneath that, there's something genuinely heartfelt and surprisingly profound. It looks like a kid's movie, but it adds so much more to say than most people will expect. My Letterboxd review for The Sheep Detectives is 3.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you so much for watching this one. If you like this review, let me know down in the comments down below, or consider giving this video a like or subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.